My kid is the kind that dumps bins to find what he wants at playtime. Any simple tips on the best practical way to store and organize toys?
How do you organize your toys, Josh?
Good guys and bad guys.
Yes. Oh,
Nice.
that's a line from Love People Use Things as well. So I had OCD as a kid, and there was a whole lot of chaos in our homes. And quite often we try to organize our lives because we're trying to organize this internal chaos.
Yeah.
And how well does that work? If I have 1,000 items and I'm just putting them in a bunch of clutter coffins, a bunch of bins, and storing them in my little tiny mausoleums, now I've got just a bunch of dead, useless, wasteful things that are getting in the way. It's organizing the chaos, but organized chaos is still chaos.
Yeah.
And so when I was a kid, and we had a lot of chaos because my mother was an alcoholic. There was drug and alcohol abuse in the home. There was some physical abuse when I was really young. My father specifically abusing my mother. My first memory as a child is of my father abusing my mother. And so the only way that I had control was what I ate and also how I tidied up my toys. And so I had some G.I. Joe figurines, and I had 3 little bins. And I would put the weapons in one bin, the good guys in one bin, and the bad guys in another bin. Here's a metaphor for you. Occasionally, some of the good guys and bad guys would switch sides.
That's good.
And that was the first time I really understood that, hey, maybe there's more nuance to good and bad, and not everyone bad is good, and not everyone good is bad, because these are constructs. Now, I wouldn't have had that vocabulary when I was a very young kid. But Ryan, tell me about the stats for children. And because kids have a lot of toys.
Yeah. So American children make up less than 3% of the world's children. They consume about 40% of the world's toys, though. So the average child in America has nearly 300 toys. But here's the kicker. They play with only about 12 of them each day. So to answer this question head on, I would say the fewer toys your child has, the less you have to worry about organizing them. And since they play with only about 12 a day anyway, they don't need 300 toys.
Right. And so this is ultimately a conversation about boundaries, right? First thing I would do if I'm Brizelda is I would go download the free Minimalist Rulebook, 16 Rules for Living with Less, theminimalists.com/rulebook. Jordan, if for the video version, you can put that up on the screen, I'm sure. But we have those rules to help you set up some boundaries for you and your family. They're not actual rules. Now, why is this important? Because we're not saying bah humbug, 0 toys is the best number of toys. No, what we're saying is if your child has 300 toys or 3,000 toys, it's actually going to get in the way of quality playtime. And having a dozen toys or a few dozen toys that are in a bin are so much better than having a dozen bins. Because what you're doing there is you're organizing the chaos. But having just one bin with useful toys that fit within any of those rules you want to pick up. Maybe it's the seasonality rule. Have I used this toy in the last 90 days? Will I use it in the next 90 days? Maybe it's the spontaneous combustion rule. Maybe it's the just in case rule. Maybe it's the emergency item rule. Although I can't think of any toys that might be an emergency item. Who knows? But if you have a bin, this is what we do with Ella. She likes to dump out her bin as well. But whenever we set the stage at the end of the night, we talked about that earlier in this Maximal episode. At the end of each night, we set the stage, or we shake the house. Everything goes back into that bin. And if it doesn't fit in the bin, then we have to let go of the excess toys.
Dude, it makes me think about, I had a friend, it was 2 brothers. Their parents would try to get them to set the stage every night, whether it was with their clothes or with their toys. And it got to a point where I'm not saying to do this, but it was just extreme. Their parents were like, okay, anything that's left out, I'm throwing away. I'm donating. So like, they would literally gather up whatever was left over, go donate to the donation store. I'm not saying to do that with your kid, but that's like, yeah, super extreme. Ella, she doesn't even have that many toys to dump out though. I mean, so like that's just going back to the less toys you have, the less you have to clean up. But yeah, I mean, I've seen Ella's toys, and she it's a pretty easy cleanup for her.
And she also realizes that when she stops playing with toys, other kids might enjoy them. And that actually brings her joy to donate those toys that once upon a time she liked, but then she stopped getting value from it. Maybe it's just that her other friends don't like them now, or it's run its course. She's no longer interested in it. Yeah. It doesn't mean someone else won't be interested in the future.
And by the way, I've never heard of Ella complaining about not having enough toys. Like, she's a very happy child.
Yeah, kids rarely complain about the number of toys that they have.
Well, I think about when I was a kid, complaining about the toys I didn't have. It was something deeper going on inside of me. There was a lack. A lack. Yes, absolutely. And we could get into my childhood stuff, but we've already done that in our book, Love People Use Things.
Did you enjoy this standalone Patreon highlight? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalist Private Podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists or click the link in the description. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.